Morning, social workers. I am your host, Lea May Parilla, and welcome to another exclusive episode of Social Work Knows, the game show that dares to ask questions about social division in social work. Today's episode will be very exciting because we have 4 new players to win the prizes we have for them. Our players are aspiring social work students from Occidental Mindoro State College. Please welcome Miss Audrey May Ayap, Miss Girly Galapon, Miss Ashnia Sultan, and Miss Adrian Valmonte. Ladies, the rules are simple. I ask the question and the first to buzz will answer. Also, you all have the time in elaborating your answer. If the answer is correct, you get 5 points. And if it's wrong, you lose 2 points. You're only allowed to buzz after I finish the question. Other previous episodes were done with other theoretical foundations on social deviation. Now, the question we're going to ask will be all about the conflict theory and critical theory. On this round, we'll be focusing on conflict theory, and I hope that you guys are ready. For the first question, he is the proponent of conflict theory. He is often treated as a revolutionary, an activist, rather than a philosopher, whose works inspired the foundation of many communist regimes in 20th century. He is also famous for his theories about capitalism and communism. He was born in 1880, one of 9 children, and lived in Rhineland region of Russia. Studied law and philosophy at universities of Bonn and Berlin. And who is this philosopher? Yes, Miss Girly.
This man named Karl Marx, and he saw the conflict in society as a primary means of exchange. Economically, he saw conflict existing between the owners of the means of production, the bourgeoisie, and the liberal called proletariat.
Correct. So now the question is, what is conflict theory? Yes, Miss Audrey.
Interprets society as a struggle for power between groups engaging in conflict-limited resources. It also views social and economic institutions as tools of the struggle between groups or classes. It is used to maintain inequality and the dominance of ruling classes. This theory looks at social and economic factors as the causes of crimes and deviance. So, unlike functionalists, this theory didn't see this as a positive function of the society. They see them as the evidence of inequality in the society.
Excellent. Next question. Mark posits that there are 2 general categories of people in industrialized societies, the capitalist class and the working class. So now, what is capitalist class? Yes, Miss Ashnia?
The capitalist class or elite consists of those in positions of wealth and power who own the means of production or control access to the means of production. Example, factories, business, machinery, and so on. They have an upper hand in a working society. Marxist conflict theory sees society as divided along lines of economic class between the proletarian working class and the bourgeois ruling class. The 2 classes are always in conflict with one another. Capitalists establish the norm of society, laws support them. Members of the capitalist class are less likely to be considered deviant because they make laws to benefit themselves. Kung kasapi ka ng upper class or elite, mas maraming benefits ang makukuha. Mas sila ang may power na patakbuhin ang society. Elites are more likely to engage in white-collar crime, which is non-violent crime committed in the course of their jobs.
Correct. How about what is the working class? Yes, Miss Adrian?
The working class. The working class consists of relatively powerless individuals who sell their labor to the capitalist class. For example, the bourgeoisie, the capitalists who own the means of production, and the much larger proletariat who must sell their labor power in order to earn living. Sa working class or proletariat, it consists of people who earn little money, often being paid through wage for the hours or days that they work. Sila yung mga blue-collar workers. Usually, they associated with manual labor occupation or industrial work. Ang working class ay ginagamit ng mga ruling class or bourgeoisie para makapag-produce ng goods and services at mapanatili ang profit for themselves. However, due to capitalism, ang working class ay na-exploit at na-oppress na nag-create ng inequalities in societies between the two classes. Nagre-result din ito upang ang kondisyon ng working class ay patuloy na maghirap. Kabaliktaran sa ruling class na lalong magiging mayaman and powerful. Consequently, with working class that are being oppressed and marginalized, sometimes turn to crime in order to gain material wealth or to survive.
That's correct. Kaya pinaniniwalaan na ang divisyong ito ng mga tao sa dalawang kategorya na binabase sa kanilang katayuan sa buhay ay nagpapakita ng inequality. Para naman sa capitalist class, pinapatunayan at sinusuportahan yung mga paratang nila gamit yung criminal justice system using their power. Itong mga nasa capitalist class ang nagpapatupad ng mga batas na sila lang rin mismo yung nakikinabang kung saan ang mga batas na ito rin ang nakakasama para sa mga working class. Both groups commit acts of deviance, but the system the capitalist created defines deviance differently for each group. Hinahatulan ng criminal justice system yung magkaibang grupo sa magkaiba ring pamamaraan. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. Conflict theorists also look at the types of crimes committed by the members of the two classes. The working class is more likely to commit so-called street crime. So now, how do we define street crime? Yes, Ms. Ashnia?
Street crime. Ang paggawa ng krimen sa public place ay isang maluwag para sa anumang krimen na pagkakasala. Ito ang karaniwang krimen na nasasangkot ang mga nasa working class. Sa street, makikita natin ang mga krimen na talamak at bulgarang nangyayari. It poses huge threats to the individual safety as well as the social stability. The cause responsible for street crime is actually a combination of individual and external factors. Personal negative emotion like fear and trust, and the external element including poverty and lack of support society are the most common ones.
Correct. So for the next question, on the other hand, members of the elite class are less likely to commit acts of violence, but more likely to engage in what crime? And please elaborate. Yes, Miss Audrey?
Members of the elite are more likely to engage in the white-collar crime or non-violent crime committed by the capitalists during the course of their occupations. Example of this is white-collar crime acts include stock trading, price fixing, and breaking regulatory laws. White-collar crime is difficult to identify. It leaves no physical evidence and not identifiable. In order to detect white-collar crime, authorities may have high knowledge about high finance. White-collar criminals are sometimes able to use their power and influence in order to avoid prosecution. They are more likely to pay a fine as a punishment for their crime.
That's correct. The elite can afford expensive lawyers and are sometimes with the individuals in charge of making and enforcing laws. Members of the working class generally do not have these advantages. So now, let's move on to the next question. Crime or the violence of a written law is a specific kind of deviance. What constitutes a crime varies society to society. Sociologists have identified 3 general categories of crime, and what are these? Yes, Miss Gurley?
The 3 categories of crime are crimes against the person, crime against the property, and victimless crime. When we say crimes against the person, these are the crime in which an act of violence is either created or perpetrated against the person. In simple term, ito ay isang krimen na mayroong isang elemento ng paggamit o tangkang paggamit ng puwersang pisikal o iba pang pang-aabuso sa isang tao, ngunit hindi limitado sa pagpatay, sa pag-atake, sa paggahasa at iba pang sexual na pagkakasala. At sa pagtukoy kung isang krimen ay nasa kategoryang ito, ang naaangkop na batas federal na kung saan ang individual ay nahatulan na nagkasala ay dapat kontrolin. The next is crimes against the property. These are the crimes that involve theft property of another. Ang crimes against the property ay mga krimen ng pagnanakaw na kung saan walang puwersa o banta ng puwersa na nakadirikta sa individual. At sa batas natin, ang major classification ng crimes against the property ay robbery, theft, estafa, malicious mischief, and arson. The third is victimless crime. These are the crimes in which law are violated but there is no identifiable victim. Ang victimless na salita ay ginagamit upang ilarawan ang mga kriminal na pagkakasala kung saan walang nagreklamo at walang madaling makilalang biktima. Ito ay kinabibilangan ng pang-aabuso sa droga at prostitusyon.
That's correct. Next question. There are 4 primary assumptions which are helpful to understand conflict theory. So give one and elaborate. Yes, Miss Adrian?
Competition. Conflict theorists believe that competition is a constant and at times an overwhelming factor in nearly every human relationship and interaction. Ang never-ending na competition ay nangyari sa pagitan ng individuals and groups sa society para sa limited and scarce resources. Maaari silang makipag-compete para sa material resources like money, property, commodities, and more. Maliban sa material resources, maaari ding makipag-compete para sa intangible resources katulad ng leisure time, dominance, social status, sexual partners, etc. As individuals and groups in society strive to maximize their share of the limited resources available, given that there are insufficient resources, the struggle inevitably prompts conflict and competition. In addition to the proponent of conflict theory, societies operates based on competition and not cooperation.
Yes, that's correct. Another one? Yes, Miss Ashnia?
Revolution.
Given conflict theories believe that conflict arises between social classes, a revolutionary event in one possible conclusion of this conflict. Ang idea ay ang pagbabago ng kapangyarihan between groups. Imbes na unting-unting tanggapin ang pagbagong iyon, nagkukos ito ng confrontation or conflict between groups. As a result, rather than being progressive and evolutionary, changes to a power dynamic are often unexpected and large in scale.
That's right. Another assumption? Yes, Miss Gurley.
Structural inequality. It is the important assumption of conflict theory. Is that human relationship and structures all experience inequalities of power. Ang structural inequality ay nangyayari kapag isang organisasyon, institusyon, gobyerno o social network ay naglalaman ng mga biases na nagbibigay kalamangan para sa ilang mga kasapi at ginagawang marginalized o nakagagawa ng mga kawalan para sa iba pang mga kasapi. Maaaring kasangkot nito ang karapatang pagmamay-ari, katayuan o hindi pantay na pag-akses sa pangangalagang pangkalusugan, pabahay, edukasyon at iba pang mapagkukunang pisikal o pinansyal o mga pagkakataon.
Correct. And last one is... Yes, Miss Audrey?
War. Conflict theorists tend to see war as a unifier or a cleanser of the society. In conflict theory, war is a result of growing conflict between groups and individuals. In the context of war, society may become unified in some ways, but conflict still remains between the societies. On the other hand, war may result as the wholesale of the society.
That's correct. You guys are all awesome. You answered all the questions correctly. So here is our scoreboard. So we can see that Miss Aya is the leading with 15 points and the rest with 10 points. But you guys can make it up to our next round. And we are now on the second round, which the question will be all about critical perspective. The first question: there was a school of social theory and critical philosophy associated with the Institute of Social Research at Goethe University, Frankfurt in 1929, founded in the Weimar Republic during the European interwar period. The Frankfurt schools comprised intellectuals, academics, and political dissidents dissatisfied with the contemporary socio-economic systems of the 1930s. So what is this school? Yes, Miss Adrian.
Frankfurt School, where it was a group of scholars known for developing critical theory.
That's right. Frankfurt School developed critical theory as an elaboration on Marxist principles. So the question is, what is critical theory? Yes, Miss Gurley.
Critical theory. Critical theory is an expansion of conflict theory and it is a broader than just sociology, incorporating other social sciences and philosophy. A critical theory is a holistic theory and attempts to address a structural issue causing inequality. The central argument that critical theory ay ang lahat ng kaalaman kahit ang pinaka-siyentipiko ay makasaysayan. Sinasabi ng critical theory na ang kaalaman ay hinuhubog ng mga taong may iba't ibang interes. Ipinaliliwanag at naiintindihan nito na ang mga tao ay may kanya-kanyang interes. Critical theory must explain what is wrong in a current social reality, identify people who can make change, and provide practical goals for social transformation. Because the aim of this theory is to dig beneath the social life and uncover the assumption that keep human beings from a full and true understanding of how the world works.
That's correct. Now, what is the perspective of conflict theory to deviance? Yes, Miss Audrey.
The critical perspective stems from the Marxist tradition. Crisis, turbulence seem to be common occurrences in the modern, urban, and industrial societies. It is a foundation towards the perpetuations of social problems. According to Foucault, instead of individuals controlled by the institution, contemporary society is characterized by the lack of will on the part of individual because institutions of knowledge, norms, and values are in place to categorize and control humans. Instead of individuals controlled by the institution, contemporary society is characterized by the lack of free will on the part of individuals because institutions of knowledge, norms, and values are in place to categorize and control humans.
That's correct. For our better understanding, the next question is still the same. What is the perspective of conflict theory to deviance? Yes, Miss Ashnia.
Deviance is defined by those with power in an effort to reinforce this power. So it means deviance is established by those in power. Behaviors and conditions that are inherently deviant and occur in the same ways across social, economic, and political conditions. Behaviors or conditions are not inherently deviant. Assumes the normative understanding of deviance ay itinatag at pinagtibay ng mga may kapangyarihan upang mas lalo pang mapanatili at mapahusay ang kanilang power. Isinasaalang-alang nila dito ang gender, class, social status, race, at iba pa. Instead of defining deviant, it focuses on individual types of deviant that exist. Research question: what is the experience of a homeless man and who is served by their treatment as deviants? Examines deviance from a perspective that questions the dominant ideology, status quo, and normativity in general. Examines in societal responses to social issues from the perspective of those with less societal power, women and people of color, or those with alternative philosophies, peacemaking. Much like the Marxist conflict perspective, critical theories ask, anong papel ang ginagampanan ng lipunan? In-emphasize ang hindi pagkapantay-pantay ng tao batay sa power social class.
That's correct. For our next question, in this theory, crime in capitalist society is relevant. The question is, what is the role of the state and the law? Yes, Miss Adrian?
Role of the state. Role of the state guarantees the interests of the dominant class and protect or defend their property both from domestic and external threat. For example, state maintain the law and order in a country, make national defense stronger, and regulates money supply. On the other hand, role of the law is a particular institutionalization of the coercive power of the state. Or put directly, it configured law as predominant legal institution and system serving the interests of dominant class or elite. For example, private property. Humans are willing to compete with each other in voluntary trade because law exists which protect private property.
Definitely correct. This game is about to end because we're moving on to the last question. Critical perspective said to give voice to the otherwise voiceless. So what's the reason behind this? Yes, Miss Ashnia?
They question the very makeup of society as we know it, to push society forward through critical reflection. This views that it is a warlike, patriarchal, mga may control, radicalized disposition of the law that is deviant. Give a voice to the voiceless, powerless, the marginalized, oppressed, criminalized, etc. Rather than how does someone become homeless or why are the homeless homeless? Critical theories look at societal responses to the homelessness, how society handle homelessness. People in power want to maintain this power and stay in power.
Correct. So now, on this very right moment, we will know who won this game. So here's the scoreboard. Wow, so we can see that we have two winners, Miss Ayap and Miss Ashnia with 20 points. And you guys did a great job today and thank you. So, to all our viewers, thank you for staying with us and see you on our next episode of Social Work Knows.